This is our third video, fourth one altogether.
Yes.
JOJ series. Welcome back. Thank y'all for watching. Be sure to go back and check out all of our previous ones.
Yep, they'll all be looped there together.
Yep.
Last week we talked about a little bit of how we became us, and we ended it at us getting married.
Yep.
Leaving in a boat.
Leaving in a boat.
We'll start with that time in our lives we were
young, married, and
had really big dreams.
On our young married, a funny part of that would be how much we moved before we actually got married and got to live.
We never lived there.
We didn't live anywhere, but all the places we moved into
and had
with
to
our
move
stuff
out.
in how much time? 4 weeks, 6 weeks?
Well, we moved into the rental
Trailer.
Dawn's house. No,
We did that one first?
that was first.
Okay.
And then we went from there to the rental house in Dandridge, which we were there almost a year.
No, you forgot the trailer.
We went from there.
The one we rented, we were going to rent from Dad.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
Ooh, so that was the first one. I guess you're right.
Yeah. So we hadn't.
Because we stayed there New Year's. A big
Yeah.
group of us stayed New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Because my cousin Ashley stayed with us.
Yeah,
Remember?
Yeah. But we had rented a house from a friend
Mm-hmm.
of mine. Went to high school with and stuff. He's like, "Man, I got a place for you," which we already had bought. Living room, like a couch, love seat.
Went to Big Lots and
Yeah.
bought. We were excited.
Yeah, bought a
Furniture.
whole living room set. Had TV, entertainment. All that stuff that you have.
Moved stuff in.
So we packed it all up. Well, we haul it,
Yeah.
literally haul it to my buddy's house. We get there and start unloading it.
and all of their stuff is still there.
Start carrying the stuff in. Well, the house is fully furnished. I'm like, "Hey man, when y'all gonna come get this stuff out of here so we can get our stuff arranged?" He's like, "It's staying. What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Well, we've got couches and all this stuff." He's like, "The stuff's staying." I'm like, "Well, we ain't gonna have anywhere to lay down if this stuff is all here." So that didn't work out.
No.
So but he let us leave our stuff there.
Yeah, we left our stuff there. So we started looking. We're like, we'll just find a house. Because he was our friend. We didn't want any bad feelings or anything. It just wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
So start looking. We found a house in Dandridge, downtown Dandridge, right across from Maury Middle School, if you know where that's at. And so we're excited. It's a little 2-bedroom, 2-bath house.
Yeah.
Cute little thing. So we're like, okay, this was probably June, July-ish, I'd say, because you only stayed there a month before we got married.
Yeah, it wasn't long.
So, of course, I'm excited. My mom's excited.
place,
we're getting stuff and get everything moved in, and it was fine. We lived there after we got married.
And it was a great little house. It was. The thing I remember about it most is it was a block house.
It was all block.
Solid block, all the way to the roof. So it was really quiet.
Very quiet. It was way up on a hill, so you didn't hear the road.
No, even though the main road was 100 yards from it, you couldn't hear anything because that little house was so well insulated and stuff. Really
and there was
quiet.
a little shed. That's where
I built crankbaits.
That's where crankbaits started. It was this little shed.
Yeah, I would keep my boat there some. I wouldn't all the time because it wasn't covered parking. But I had a little shed that I shared with a family of mice that I kept all my fishing stuff in. Built crankbaits, and also so we had Butchie.
Yes, our little pug, which he lived with me at my mom and dad's.
Yeah,
that was my present from Aunt because I always wanted pugs.
Yeah, he was a Christmas present.
Yes, yeah, because we picked him up he was born in December. We pre-ordered him.
Yeah,
and picked him up February, I think.
February, yeah, yeah, at a very sketchy place in the mountains of North Carolina.
It's excellent.
Yeah, it was rough getting in and out of there.
It was.
Snowed.
It was snowing. It was coming back over the mountain.
Yeah.
Our parents were freaking out.
Yeah, but we made it home.
Yep.
But so we had him, and we had a.
Well, we ended up going and getting a little mutt because I was working a lot.
Married,
yeah.
After we were married and had lived there not even a month.
Not really, probably a month, but because he was working, I was working, and poor little Butchie was home all alone by
himself all day.
And I'm like, let's just go to the Humane Society. We're just gonna look. So we go, and there was this cute little litter of puppies, and there was 2. She was the only brown one, and then there was 2 or 3 yellow ones of her.
Yeah.
Still don't really know what she was, but she had this little spot. like just skin across her head, and she had a spot on her back too.
It's kind of just the hide knocked off.
Yeah, and so I was like, no one's going to adopt her. So, I mean, she's it's very much no. Like he is no. We're not getting another dog. We don't need a puppy. We leave.
Yeah.
I'm heartbroken because this poor dog. Nobody's going to adopt her.
I heard that all night. Nobody's going to adopt that poor. My mom's a vet. She can check her out. They're just going to have to put her down. That little puppy. You just know nobody's going to take that poor little puppy.
So we went back the next day and got her. And you know whose puppy she was?
She was mine.
She was his, and we named her Violet.
Yeah. That was a long tangent.
That got off really bad on that one.
It's all good.
Yep.
After being in the rental house,
we just bought the trailer.
Yeah, it was fairly expensive. I mean, it was like $550 a month, which wasn't terrible. And it was neat because it was us doing our own thing. You know, like the place we were going to rent from Dad was from Dad. The other place was from a friend. This was literally an ad on Craigslist or wherever it was for our house for rent. So just with somebody that we didn't know from Adam, but then and we liked living there, but we were still fishing like I was then, starting to travel and that kind of stuff. We needed to save every penny we could because I was labor working for Dad when I was home. She was still working at the restaurant.
Sometimes they only worked half days,
and we might have fished the rest of it, but I still got paid for all day.
Yeah.
But so I mean, we were trying to save save as much as we could, and we knew renting was not necessarily the way to do that. Yeah. So we looked around, and there was a place that had mobile home lots that you could rent, and we met with some people there and actually bought that one wasn't repoed or anything. It was just for sale, I think. Just
a single wide.
Just a single wide that was for sale, and we bought it for $10,000. Is that right? And Dad financed it for us. But we bought that from them, moved it in there, and the lot rent was
maybe $100. I don't even think it was like $110, maybe.
Yeah, so we're 100 and something into the rent, couple hundred a month maybe to Dad for a payment, and then we've cut our housing payment down by about half, which was a pretty big savings. So that was, that was really important for us.
Yeah, and we knew if we could have some good tournaments that we could take some chunks of that to get it paid off quicker, and then we would own it. Yeah, was kind of the goal. So,
but we ended up living there. We probably hadn't been there.
But we hadn't been there long when the other stuff happened. Yeah,
so we hadn't been there maybe 4 months or if that long. Maybe I don't think 6 because we only ended up being there about 8 or 10. Less than 6 months we had lived there, and my brother's engaged, and his fiance's family lives just across the road from where we grew up, and so Dad's like, hey, I'm going to give Sonny an acre and a half here, I'm going to make it even, give you an acre and a half here. Dad loved the idea because he'd have
everybody there,
have his boys back at home basically, and so we were like, yeah, that sounds great. So we actually, the same place we were living, those people there had done some repos and stuff, and they'd found a double wide up in Greenville.
Yeah,
I think it was. So we went up there and looked at it, and it was disgusting, and it smelled really bad. And Jenny's looking at me like, "You expect me to live in this place?"
It was bad.
Which her dad had went with us, and that was remodeling.
And your dad, it was like both of our dads, and then us, and Jim, the guy that owned it.
Yeah.
And I mean, the smell, like it smelled like every drug imaginable was cooked there, used there. And so you could just imagine the carpet was supposed to be green, and it was orange,
every
brown.
Other color. Yeah.
The cabinets were supposed to be white. They were like yellow. I mean, from all the smoke. The ceilings were yellow. Everything was just, it was so gross. Yeah. But it was 4 bedrooms. It was 2 baths.
2,000 square feet.
2,000 square feet. Had like a double fireplace. Yeah. And I mean, it was way bigger than what we had been living in. And I think it was like $32,000 to have it. It was $28,000 for the home and $4,000 to have it moved and set up.
Yeah.
So we were like, sold.
Yeah.
You know,
and you weren't at first, but by the time we got home, between me, my dad,
and everybody convincing me that it would not, that we could gut it and it would be fine. But so once we agreed, and I came around to it, we had it hauled to our lot, which wasn't ready yet. So they brought it in 2 halves, you know, how a mobile home comes. And Aunt's dad, of course, our biggest concern was, we're like, we just bought this other little trailer. Like, what are we going to do with it? And he was like, listen, I'll buy it from you and I'll set it up. We have a lot we could set it up on, so that way we wouldn't be out money, because obviously if we had known this was coming, we wouldn't have bought it in the first place. We would have went from the rental there. So he bought it, and he actually, I think, sold it since, you know, so it was handled and nobody lost anything on that. But as it sat in 2 halves, I would go over there and like paint and like kills everything. Because I was like, you know, the sooner we can get this done, the sooner we can move in. And I mean, it was a lot of fun though. I mean, I love doing that kind of stuff anyways. But then we got it set up and in 2 halves, and we tore out all the flooring. Painted, cabinets, everything, cabinet.
Pulled all the cabinets out.
We didn't do the bathrooms then, because we ended up doing our bathroom when we had the leak. So we did as much as we could, but as minimally as we could to get it from not being disgusting.
Where was it we got the flooring at? You remember?
At the thing on Asheville Highway.
Not Knoxville, Stovers.
Stovers, yeah.
The flooring, the laminate flooring we put throughout the whole thing was like, with tax, 99 cents a foot.
Yeah, that's great. I kind of wish I had it in our house now, to be honest.
It was extremely tough. I mean, it was
like it is still, and it's still. I mean, I haven't seen it, but it's still what's in there.
Yeah.
So we obviously got it finished, moved in. We're still broke. You know, we're still living paycheck to paycheck. And tournament to tournament.
Fishing, I was fishing like Everstars and that kind of stuff. And that would have been, so this would have been like 2005, 2006-ish, somewhere in there. So I was progressing. I was wanting to get to the FLW tour. But that is more entry fees, bigger paybacks and all that kind of stuff, but definitely more expense in that. But that was our commitment in that time, was that could I have said, well, I'm not going to fish as much, I'm just going to work more, maybe get a second job, you working at the restaurant. We could have honestly have worked out where we afforded a $700, $800, $900 mortgage if that's where we wanted our focus to be. But we were determined to try to make this fishing thing work. You know, I mean, those were the sacrifices we were making at that time. Was, could we live in a really nice place completely on our own, where we wanted to be? Yeah, I thought that was all we wanted to do.
And I think we did every option. Like, we looked at houses. You know, of buying a house and all that stuff. But then it was like reality. Like, my biggest thing was, okay, if fishing goes, because everybody knows how fishing can go. I mean, you can go all year and not get a check. And at that time, when we're paying no sponsors, we're paying entry fees, we're doing it. So if we don't cover that, or if we don't get any extra income, then I have to make sure I can cover it. That was always our biggest thought process, was, okay, if fishing doesn't help cover expenses, can we afford this?
That was the way we would set our bills, basically. Was that regardless if I got a check,
we could afford it.
We could still afford it. And that was, so we set our expectations low. And try to keep our budget low. And then whatever came in above that, then that
was great.
Then that would work out. So I think that's advice in there to young people, regardless of what your line of work is. Don't say, well, here's what my monthly income is, let's spend all of it but $10. You know, I don't think that anybody who's ever and this goes for our country, doing without in the U.S., and I've not traveled abroad, but doing without here is really doing with a lot. I mean, it really is. So cutting out on some of the things that aren't necessary, you're still living pretty good in our country. And that was definitely the route we were taking. Was we didn't have cable TV. We didn't even have cable regular internet. We had an air card. So I mean, you know, everything we did was to keep our bills low, where we knew we could pay our bills every month. Whatever we put on a credit card, we knew we had enough to pay it off at the end of the month. Those were that was just the way that we lived our life, and it wasn't
easy.
It wasn't easy, but it was just those were the choices we made early on because we didn't want to add any extra stress in our marriage and in our decisions.
Like we didn't. I mean, the only time we ate out is if we went with our families and they paid for us. Like we were smart in that aspect, like because they wanted to see us.
You're right. Yeah.
So, hey, you want to meet at Playos?
Yeah.
Because we knew they'd pick up the bill.
Right. Yep. That was our out to eat.
Yeah, but I mean, I would make like casseroles or something, and we would have that. I worked a split shift for a little while.
Well, that was after. That was around about this time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Around it was about the time I guess when you got pregnant with Abby or somewhere there. How long was it before Abby that I started working at the trucking place?
We were still in the single wide.
Yeah, that's right. So in this time, somewhere from the single wide in Dandridge, while we were there, I actually stopped working for her dad and started working for a trucking company off of Straw Plains Pike.
Because we didn't have health insurance or anything up until then.
And so my dad was actually hard on us for that.
He was very hard on us about not having health insurance because he was like, if you if
anything happens, you need to have health insurance so
the trucking company was just an opportunity, and of course my dad was like, if you can have benefits, do it. So he started working there, and he worked a split shift, and so he'd work early in the morning, kind of be home midday, which I was usually home, and then I would go to work at 2 or 3. And then he'd go back to work, so I'd make like a casserole, and then we'd have it for lunch, and then he would take the rest for dinner. So everything we did was
a $4 meal.
Yeah, it was probably $2.50 then.
It might have been $2.50, but it would make 2 days worth of food off of it.
Yeah, and still, even at this time, we were still, we would still go to church here and there. It was not our focus or our priority. Not living terrible, but we also weren't 100% living for Jesus either.
Yeah. And that was just, I think that's an easy place to fall into at that age, right? I mean, we were busy, we were working, our lives were getting busier. We were trying to pay bills, so if we could work on a Sunday or something, it was like I
worked doubles almost every Sunday.
That was kind of where we were at that point in time. So it really certainly wasn't our priority. That's just where we were in life. That just where we were. But yeah, we would go on occasion, here and there. But it definitely was not our daily or weekly focus. So the first, year and a half, 2 year span, definitely a lot of moving.
Yes, a lot of moving
in our early marriage. Twice before we ever got married, and then we got married, lived there, moved 2 more times. Before settling in there for a while next to my mom and dad. But that was for us, and changing jobs for me from working for my father-in-law to working for the trucking company. She's still working at the restaurant in Dandridge through all that. But yeah, those first couple years of marriage were a lot of changes. From addresses to jobs, all different kind of stuff. But learning a lot about each other, and that was definitely where we were at. But still very much living, not following Jesus closely, even though we were both Christians and had been for nearly 10 years at this point. You 10, but me nearly. So next week, going to talk more about kind of
where our focus begins to change.
Yeah, it really was. What happened in a particular event that took place really helped change us and definitely change our focus. So come back and watch that one next week.